Paris to London. The red eye cuts through the darkness at 35,000 feet. Cabin lights dimmed, most passengers already asleep. Then the plane lurches hard, sudden shudder. The oxygen masks do not drop, but something in that shudder feels different. The overhead speaker crackles. The captain's voice comes through, measured but tight. "This is your captain. We have a situation. If there is anyone on board with military flight experience, please identify yourself to the crew immediately." Row 8, Seat A. A man blinks awake, stubble on his jaw, hoodie worn thin at the elbows, his daughter asleep against his shoulder. He looks like every other exhausted parent flying economy. The flight attendant moved past him, scanning the business class section first, eyes searching for someone who looks the part. A woman in first class glanced back at row 8, then turned away. But that man's hands. 9 years ago, they knew something most people will never understand, and tonight they might be the only reason anyone gets home. 2 hours before the flight, O'Hare International Airport was packed with travelers dragging suitcases and checking phones. Warren Hayes stood in the economy check-in line with 2 small backpacks at his feet. Nora clutched a worn teddy bear against her chest, looking up at the departure board with wide eyes. She tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, how come we didn't get seats by the window?" Warren smiled down. "Because I know you'll fall asleep on my shoulder anyway. Saved us $50. I'll get you that birthday present you've been asking about next month." Nora hugged the bear tighter. It had been a gift from her mother before she died. The fur was matted in places, one eye hung loose by a thread, but Nora never let it out of her sight. They moved through security and found seats in the waiting area near their gate. Warren opened his laptop, checking a few lines of code for a project due Monday. Nora sat beside him, swinging her legs, the bear perched on her lap. After a moment, she looked up. "Dad, is the plane scary?" Warren closed the laptop and turned to face her. "You know what I used to do before I became an engineer?" Nora shook her head. Warren's voice was quiet. "I used to fly. But now my most important job is being your dad, and I promise I'll always be right here with you." Nora seemed satisfied with that. She leaned her head against his arm. Across the waiting area, an older Vietnamese woman struggled with a heavy suitcase, trying to lift it onto a luggage cart. Warren stood and walked over. He lifted the suitcase easily and placed it on the cart. The woman smiled, her English hesitant. "Thank you. Very kind." Warren nodded. "No problem, ma'am." When he returned to his seat, Nora was watching him with bright eyes. "You're really nice, Dad." Warren ruffled his hair, just trying to help. Boarding began 20 minutes later. Business class passengers lined up first, suits, leather bags, expensive watches. Warren and Nora waited in the economy line. A man in a tailored blazer, Douglas Martinez, CEO of a tech firm, walked past Warren, distracted by his phone, and bumped into Warren's shoulder without looking. Martinez glanced at Warren, hoodie, stubble, cheap backpack, and kept walking without a word. Inside the cabin, Warren helped Nora into seat B8, the one by the window after all. She looked up at him, surprised. He smiled. "Changed my mind. You should see the clouds." Nora pressed her face to the glass as the plane began to taxi. Warren settled into 8A, fastening his seatbelt. The flight attendant walked past, a woman in her 30s with kind eyes. Her name tag read Jillian Rhodes. She stopped briefly. "Can I get you anything?" Warren shook his head. "We're fine, thank you." Jillian noticed the way he spoke, polite, quiet, tired, but warm. She moved on down the aisle. The plane accelerated down the runway. Nora's small hand found Warren and squeezed tight. She whispered, "I'm a little scared. Please remain calm." Warren squeezed back. "Me too, sweetheart, but I'm here. I'm always here." The wheels left the ground. The city lights fell away below them. Nora's breathing slowed. Within minutes, she was asleep against Warren's shoulder, the bear tucked under her chin. Warren looked down at her. For a brief second, he saw Catherine lying in the hospital bed, her hand in his, her voice so faint he had to lean close to hear. "Promise me you'll take care of her." "I promise. No matter what happens, you'll always come home to her." "I will. I swear." But Warren was no longer that person. He had not flown in 9 years. The Air Force was a lifetime ago. His call sign, Magic Hands, had been retired the day he walked away. Now he was just a software engineer, a father, a man trying to keep a promise to a woman who was gone. But there had been a time when his hands knew the sky better than anything else, when his squadron called him the best stick and rudder pilot they had ever seen, when he could land a crippled F-16 in the dark with one engine out and never break a sweat.
Tonight, that past was about to come back. 3 hours into the flight, the cabin was dark and still. Most passengers slept. The hum of the engines was steady, hypnotic. Warren had dozed off with Nora curled against him. Then the plane dropped, not a gentle dip, a violent lurch that sent loose items flying. A woman screamed. Overhead bins rattled. The seatbelt sign blinked on with a harsh chime. In the cockpit, Captain Stevens reached for his coffee. The plane pitched forward without warning. He was thrown against the control panel. His head struck the edge with a sickening crack. Blood ran down his temple. He slumped sideways, unconscious. Liam Patterson, the first officer, grabbed the yoke with both hands. He was 28 years old, 800 hours of flight time. He had never flown without autopilot in conditions like this. The control panel lit up red. Warning lights blinked in sequence.
Primary flight control system failure. Hydraulic pressure loss. Liam's voice cracked as he keyed the intercom. Captain Stevens. No response. Blood pooled on the armrest. Liam pulled back on the yoke. It was heavy, too heavy. He needed both hands just to keep the nose level. Sweat dripped into his eyes. The plane leveled out, but barely. Liam's arms were already shaking. In the cabin, passengers were waking, panicking. Jillian Rhodes moved through the aisles, trying to calm them. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. An older man stood up near the front. His name was Howard Brennan. He had worked as an aviation engineer before retiring. He raised his hand. "I have flight experience, 200 hours. I can help." Jillian looked at him, then nodded. "Come with me." Howard followed her to the cockpit. When he saw the control panel, his face went pale. This was not a Cessna. This was a Boeing 777 with a dead flight computer and failing hydraulics. He sat down in the captain's seat and gripped the yoke. Liam looked at him with desperate hope. Howard's hands were shaking. I've only flown small aircraft. This is..." Liam's voice was tight. "Can you handle manual control? No computer assist?" Howard shook his head slowly. "I don't know." 5 minutes passed. Howard was sweating through his shirt. The yoke was too heavy. His arms burned. He looked at Liam, and the truth was written on his face. "I can't do this. I'm sorry." Liam keyed the intercom again. His voice was no longer steady. It was raw, afraid. "This is the flight deck. We need someone with military flight experience. If anyone on board has flown combat aircraft, please identify yourself to the crew immediately." In the first-class cabin, Veronica Sterling sat upright, her fingers gripping the armrest. She was 45, a corporate lawyer flying to London for a $50 million case. If she did not make it to court tomorrow, her firm would collapse. She turned and looked back toward economy. Her eyes swept through the rows. When she saw the man in the hoodie in seat 8A, she frowned and looked away. Someone like that could possibly not be a pilot. But Warren Hayes had heard every word, and for the first time in 9 years, something old and buried stirred inside him. Warren's hand was still on the armrest. His fingers tightened. Nora was awake now, her face pale, her small hand gripping the teddy bear. She looked up at him. "Dad, what's happening?" Warren did not answer right away. His mind was somewhere else. 9 years ago, a different cockpit, a different crisis, an F-16 with a blown engine and a wingman bleeding out in the seat behind him. The choice between fear and action. He had landed that plane, barely. His hands had not stopped shaking for hours afterwards. Afterward, his commander had found him alone in the locker room, staring at his trembling fingers. "Hayes, you all right?" Warren's voice was hollow. "I almost killed him, my wingman. I almost didn't bring him back." The commander had put a hand on his shoulder. "But you did. That's what matters." But Warren knew the truth. He had been terrified, and the fear had never really left. Now Nora's voice pulled him back to the present. "Dad, where are you going?" Warren leaned down and kissed her forehead. "I have to go help some people, sweetheart, but I'll come right back, I promise." Nora's lip trembled, but she nodded. Warren stood and moved toward the front of the cabin. Other passengers stared.
Veronica Sterling rose from her seat and stepped into the aisle. Her voice was sharp. "Excuse me, where do you think you're going?" Warren's tone was quiet. "I think I can help." Veronica looked him up and down. Hoodie, stubble, economy. Her expression hardened. You have credentials? Proof of anything?" Warren did not answer. He stepped around her. Veronica's voice rose. "I'm asking a legitimate question. 283 lives are at stake. We can't just let anyone into that cockpit." She turned to the other passengers. "I have a critical court case tomorrow morning. $50 million on the line. My company will go under if I'm not there. We need someone qualified, not some—" She stopped herself, but the implication hung in the air. Warren reached the cockpit door. Jillian Rhodes was standing there. He spoke quietly. "My name is Warren Hayes. I flew F-16s for 12 years. Air Force call sign was Magic Hands." Jillian stared at him. He did not look like any pilot she had ever seen, but there was something in his eyes, something steady. "Are you sure?" Warren's jaw tightened. "No, but I'm the only one on this plane who can do it." Veronica appeared behind him, her voice frantic. "Now! I demand verification. Call ground control. We can't trust this." Warren turned to face her. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "You're right. You need someone qualified. But right now, you only have me." He stepped into the cockpit. The door closed behind him. The cockpit was smaller than Warren remembered. Captain Stevens lay slumped in his seat, a bandage wrapped around his head, breathing but unconscious. Liam Patterson looked up when Warren entered, his eyes red-rimmed, desperate. "You really flew F-16s?" Warren nodded. His eyes were already scanning the instrument panel. Red warning lights blinked in sequence across the display. He did not need to read them to know what they meant. Hydraulic pressure is at 1,200 psi, should be 3,000. Liam's mouth opened slightly. "How did—" Warren pointed to a gauge near the center console. "The backup system is compensating, but it's not strong enough to control the control surfaces. You're flying manually right now."
"The yoke probably weighs 3 times what it should." Liam stared at him. "Yes, exactly." Howard Brennan was shaking. He looked at Warren with something almost close to relief. "I can't hold it much longer." Warren stepped closer. "You've done well. Let me take over." Before Howard could move, the cockpit door opened behind them. A man in his late 50s stepped inside. His posture was military, shoulders back, chin level. He wore a polo shirt and khakis, but everything about him said Navy. "I'm Commander Philip Thornton, 22 years retired. I need to verify this man's credentials before we proceed." Liam started to protest, but Thornton raised a hand. "This isn't personal, it's protocol. Lives are at stake." Thornton turned to Warren. His eyes were sharp, assessing. "What's the approach speed for an F-16 with primary flight control failure?" Warren answered without hesitation. 140 to 160 knots, depending on payload. If you lose main hydraulics and switch to backup, you need an additional 20% thrust to compensate for control lag. Thornton's expression did not change. "Emergency procedure for dual engine failure at 15,000 feet. Warren met his gaze. "Glide ratio is 1 to 10. For every 1,000 feet of altitude, I get 2 nautical miles of range. Cut fuel flow to prevent fire on impact. Maintain 200 knots for maximum lift. Find a flat surface or ditch in water perpendicular to wave direction." Thornton studied him for 3 long seconds. Then he nodded. "He's real. Let him in." He turned to Liam. "Trust him." Thornton stepped back out into the cabin, but before the door closed, Veronica Sterling pushed past him into the narrow space. Her voice was shrill. "I object to this. We don't know who this man is. He could be lying." Jillian tried to pull her back. "Miss Sterling, please, return to your seat." Veronica shook her off. Her face was flushed, her breathing fast. "I have a court appearance tomorrow morning. $50 million is on the line. My entire company depends on it. We need someone qualified, not some stranger from economy." Warren did not turn around. He was watching the hydraulic pressure gauge. It was dropping slowly but steadily. 1,000, 1050, 900. He spoke quietly. "We don't have as much time as we thought." Howard Brennan released the yoke and slid out of the captain's seat, his legs barely holding him. Warren took his place. The moment his hands touched the controls, muscle memory flooded back. The weight, the resistance, the way the aircraft responded a fraction of a second behind his input. It had been 9 years, but his body remembered. Liam watched him, his voice uncertain. "What do we do?" Warren's hands moved across the panel, checking readouts, testing responses. His finger stopped on a small indicator light in the lower right corner of the display. It was amber, almost hidden behind a cascade of red warnings. "This is the secondary hydraulic pump. It's still running, but it's not engaged." Liam leaned closer. "I didn't even see that." Warren flipped a switch. A low hum vibrated through the floor. The hydraulic pressure gauge jumped from 1,000 to 1,500 psi. The yoke became noticeably lighter in his hands. Liam's eyes went wide. "How did you know?" Warren's voice was flat. "FB-16s have the same system. After 12 years, you learn every light on the board." Thornton appeared in the doorway again. He had been watching from the cabin. Now he turned and spoke loud enough for the nearest passengers to hear. "He's the real deal, I guarantee it." A murmur spread through the rows. Some passengers looked relieved, others still looked terrified. Warren adjusted the trim, testing the responses. The plane was stable now, but barely. He glanced at Liam. "Why did you stop flying?" The question came from Liam, hesitant, almost apologetic. Warren did not answer right away. His mind drifted back, not to the Air Force, further to a hospital room. Catherine lying in the bed, her hands so thin he was afraid to squeeze it. Her voice had been a whisper. "Don't quit because of me." Warren had shaken his head. "You're more important. Our daughter is more important." Catherine's eyes had filled with tears. "But you were born to fly." Warren had leaned close, his forehead against hers. "No, I was born to love you and to raise our daughter." He pulled himself back to the present. Liam was still waiting for an answer. "I had something more important than the sky. I had a daughter." Liam nodded slowly, understanding something unspoken. In the cabin, Jillian Rhodes knelt beside Nora in seat 8B. The little girl's face was streaked with tears, her hands clutching the teddy bear so tightly her knuckles were white. "Where's my dad?" Jillian smiled gently. "He's up front. He's helping everyone." Nora's voice was small. "Is he really a pilot?" Jillian looked toward the cockpit, then back at Nora. Her smile widened, genuine now. "Your dad is the best pilot I've ever seen." Nora's grip on the bear loosened slightly. She looked out the window at the endless black ocean below. Then she whispered something so quietly, Jillian almost missed it. "Mom, I'm going to trust him." In the cockpit, Warren's hands were steady on the yoke, but his mind was anything but calm. The hydraulic pressure was holding at 1,500 psi. That was enough to keep them airborne, but the backup pump was not designed to run continuously. It would fail eventually, and when it did, the plane would become unflyable. He keyed the radio. "Shannon, control, this is Flight 227. We have partial hydraulic restoration, but the system is degrading. Request immediate diversion." A voice crackled back, calm and professional. "Flight 227, this is Captain Randall Cooper, Shannon Control. We copy your situation. Nearest suitable airport is Reykjavik, Iceland. Distance 520 nautical miles. Estimated flight time 52 minutes. Warren checked the hydraulic gauge again. It had dropped to 1,250 psi in the last 30 seconds. "Shannon, at current rate of degradation, we have approximately 45 minutes before total hydraulic failure. Reykjavik is too far." There was silence on the other end. When Cooper spoke again, his voice was quieter. "Understood. Stand by." Warren's jaw tightened. He knew what was coming. The radio crackled again. Cooper's voice was careful, measured.
Flight 227. Closest option is Faroe Islands. Distance 180 nautical miles northeast. You can make that in your window. Warren's hands tightened on the yoke. "What's the runway length?" A beat of silence. 1,250 meters. Liam's face went pale. "A 777 needs at least 1,800 meters. We'll overshoot. We'll end up in the ocean." Warren's voice was calm. "Not if I land at the right angle." Liam turned to him, eyes wide. "You can't be serious." Warren did not respond. He was already running calculations in his head. Speed, weight, drag coefficient, brake efficiency without full hydraulics. It was possible, barely. Outside the cockpit, Veronica Sterling had heard every word through the thin door. Her face went white. She stood up, her voice rising to a shout. "He's going to kill us! He's insane! Someone else needs to take over!" Several passengers looked up, fear spreading like a contagion. A woman clutched her young son. An elderly man gripped his armrest. Panic rippled through the cabin. Veronica's voice grew louder. "I demand someone qualified, not this stranger." Warren keyed the intercom. His voice came through every speaker in the plane, low and steady. "This is Warren Hayes. I know you're scared. I'm scared too." The cabin went silent. "I'm not going to lie to you. This is dangerous, but I'm only promising one thing. I will fight with everything I have to get us on the ground safely." He took a breath. "If you have family waiting for you, I do too. My daughter is sitting in seat 8B. I promised I'd come home, and I intend to keep that promise." The silence deepened. Veronica sank back into her seat, her hands trembling. Thornton stood up in the aisle. His voice was loud, clear, commanding. "I trust him, and if anyone here doubts, look at his eyes. Those are the eyes of a man who's faced death and won." A few passengers nodded. Others closed their eyes and prayed. Then the cockpit lit up red again. A harsh alarm blared. Warren's eyes snapped to the hydraulic gauge, 800 psi. The backup system was failing faster than he had calculated. The yoke jerked in his hands, suddenly heavier. Warren pulled hard to keep the nose level. His arms burned. Leon's voice cracked. "What do we do?" Warren's face was set, his jaw clenched. "We get to Faro before this thing drops to zero." Cooper's voice came over the radio, tight now, no longer calm. "Flight 227, Faro Islands has cleared the runway. Emergency services are standing by. Be advised, runway has no ILS guidance. You'll be landing visual reference." Warren's stomach dropped. Visual landing meant no instruments, no computer assistance, just his eyes and his hands. Just like that night 9 years ago. The F-16, one engine dead, hydraulics failing, his wingman unconscious in the seat behind him. Darkness, fear, and the choice to trust himself or die trying. He had landed that plane barely, but this was different. This was a Boeing 777, 180 tons, 283 souls, and the hydraulic pressure kept falling. 750 psi, 700. Warren's knuckles were white on the yoke. Sweat dripped into his eyes. He did not wipe it away. Leon's voice was barely a whisper. "Can we make it?" Warren did not answer because he did not know. The yoke fought him. Every adjustment required both hands and all his strength. Warren's forearms screamed, his shoulders burned, but he did not let go. Leon tried to help, gripping the co-pilot's yoke, but his hands were shaking too badly. He let go. "I can't hold it. I've never flown in conditions like this." Warren's voice was tight. "Then let me do it alone." Leon released the controls. Warren was now the only thing keeping the plane in the air. The hydraulic gauge dropped to 600 psi. The yoke bucked hard to the left. Warren pulled it back, his entire body straining. Sweat poured down his face, dripping onto the instrument panel. Cooper's voice came through the radio again. "Flight 227, Faro Islands control is ready. Runway is clear. Emergency crews are in position." Warren's voice was steady, but barely. "Understood." Cooper hesitated. "Hayes, there's something you need to know. The runway at Faro doesn't have standard ILS lighting. You'll be landing by visual reference only, in the dark." Warren closed his eyes for half a second. Visual landing, no instruments, just like before. His mind flashed back, the F-16 cockpit alarm screaming, his wingman's voice over the radio, weak, fading. "Hayes, I can't see. I think I'm bleeding out." Warren's hands had been shaking so badly he could barely hold the stick. His commander's voice had cut through the chaos. "Hayes, you can do this. Bring him home." Warren had landed that plane on instinct alone. He had not trusted himself. He had simply run out of options. Tonight was no different. He opened his eyes. "I understand." Behind him, the cockpit door opened. Veronica Sterling stepped inside, her face wet with tears. Jillian tried to stop her, but Veronica pushed past. Her voice was broken now, no longer angry. "Please, I'm sorry I doubted you." Warren did not turn around. His hands stayed locked on the yoke. Veronica's voice cracked.
I have a daughter. She's 16. She's home alone. My mother's in the hospital. I can't die here. I can't. She fumbled in her purse and pulled out a checkbook, her hands shaking. I'll pay you $1 million. I swear. Just get us down safely. Warren's jaw tightened. He still did not look back. I don't need your money, Miss Sterling. His voice softened just slightly. But if you want to see your daughter again, sit down and let me work. Thornton appeared behind Veronica and gently took her arm. Come on, he's got this. Veronica let herself be led out. As the door closed, she whispered, I'm sorry. Warren exhaled slowly. His right hand was trembling now. The muscles were giving out. He bit down hard, tasting blood. The hydraulic gauge hit 500 psi. The yoke bucked hard in his hands. Warren pulled harder. His vision blurred. His arms screamed. And he thought, if I fail this time, Nora loses both parents. But if I don't try, she dies with me.
25 minutes before they would reach Faro, Warren requested a handheld radio from Jillian. She brought it to the cockpit, her face pale but steady. I need to talk to my daughter. Jillian nodded and took the radio down the aisle. She knelt beside Nora in seat 8B. The little girl's eyes were red and swollen. The teddy bear sat in her lap, one button eye hanging by a thread. Jillian held out the radio. Your dad wants to talk to you. Nora took it with trembling hands. She pressed the button. Dad? Warren's voice came through, rough but warm. Hey, sweetheart, I'm here. Nora's voice broke. I'm scared. Please come back. Please sit with me. Warren's hand stayed locked on the yoke. He blinked away the moisture in his eyes. I can't right now, Nora, but I promise I'm gonna get you home. Nora was crying now. Mom said that too, and then she didn't come back. Warren's throat tightened. He could barely speak. I know, baby. I know. But Mom fought as hard as she could. She loved you so much. His voice dropped to a whisper. And I'm fighting too right now. For you. There was silence on the other end. Then Nora's voice came through, smaller but steadier. Mom told me something once. She said you were the strongest person in the world. Warren's vision blurred. Tears slid down his cheeks and fell onto the instrument panel. Nora's voice was quiet but clear. I believe her. I believe you, Dad, no matter what happens. Warren could not speak. He just nodded, even though she could not see him. Finally, he managed 2 words. I love you. Nora whispered back, I love you too. Jillian gently took the radio from Nora's hands. The little girl hugged the bear and stared out the window into the blackness. In the cockpit, Warren wiped his face with the back of his hand. Liam was watching him, something like awe in his expression. Warren turned to him, his voice steady again. We're going to do a military-style landing, full manual, no automation. I'll walk you through every step. You just do exactly what I say. Liam swallowed hard. I've never done this before. I'm terrified. Warren met his eyes. So am I, but we're going to do it together. He took 3 slow breaths, forcing his heart rate down. Outside the cockpit window, the sky was pitch black. Below, the Atlantic Ocean rolled in through 3-meter swells. Somewhere ahead, hidden in the darkness, was a tiny island with a runway barely long enough to stop them. Cooper's voice crackled over the radio. Flight 227, Faro is ready. Runway lights are on, fire crews standing by. Do you need step-by-step guidance? Warren's voice was calm now, cold, focused. Negative. I need silence to concentrate. Cooper understood. Copy that. Good luck, Hayes. Warren checked the hydraulic gauge one last time. 300 psi, dropping fast. He began descending. 15,000 feet. 14. 13. The yoke resisted every movement. His arms were numb. His wrists ached, but he did not let go. 10,000 feet. 8. 5. He was flying a 180-ton aircraft with almost no control, no computer assistance, and no room for error.
One mistake and 283 people would die, including his daughter. But Warren Hayes had done this before, in the dark, with one engine, with a dying man behind him, and he had survived. He would survive this too, because Nora was waiting. 10 minutes from touchdown, the Faroe Islands appeared as a faint cluster of lights against the blackness. The runway was a thin yellow line cutting through the center of the island. Warren's eyes locked onto it. "I see it." Cooper's voice was tight now. "Winds are 25 knots crosswind. Sea state is 3 meters. Light fog." Warren did not respond. He was already adjusting for the wind. Feeling the way the plane wanted to drift left, he corrected with slight pressure on the yoke. Every movement took all his strength. 5 minutes out, he lowered the landing gear. The mechanical grind echoed through the fuselage. The hydraulic gauge dropped to 200 psi. The yoke became almost impossible to move. Liam was gripping his armrest, knuckles white. "How are you even holding that?" Warren did not answer. His entire body was locked in place, arms shaking, jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. 2 minutes out, altitude 1,500 feet, speed 220 knots, too fast. He needed to slow down. Warren's voice was clipped. "Liam, on my mark, cut engine 1, leave engine 2 running." Liam's eyes went wide. "Cut an engine? Why?" Warren's voice was harder now. "To reduce speed. We're coming in too hot. Do it when I say." 1 minute out, altitude 500 feet. The runway was directly ahead, but it looked impossibly short, like a postage stamp. Warren's voice cut through the tension. "Cut engine 1 now." Liam hit the button. The left engine shut off. The plane tilted slightly. Warren fought the yoke, bringing it level again. Speed dropped to 180 knots, still too fast, but better. 30 seconds, altitude 200 feet. He could see the runway clearly now, 1,250 meters. The ocean waited at the far end, dark and hungry. Jillian's voice came over the intercom, calm and clear. "All passengers, heads down, brace for impact." In the cabin, passengers bent forward, hands over their heads. Veronica Sterling pressed her face into her knees, whispering her daughter's name. Thornton held the hand of a young boy beside him, his voice low and steady. "It's going to be okay, son. Trust him." Nora sat with her eyes closed, the bear clutched against her chest. Her lips moved silently. "Please, Mom, please." 10 seconds, altitude 50 feet. Warren pulled the nose up slightly, entering the flare. The yoke resisted. He pulled harder. 5 seconds, 20 feet, 10. The rear wheels hit the runway with a deafening bang. Smoke exploded from the tires. The plane bounced, lifted, then slammed down again. The front wheels struck hard.
The entire fuselage shook violently. Warren stomped on the brakes. Without hydraulics, they were purely mechanical. Weak, insufficient. The plane was still rolling at 100 knots. The end of the runway was rushing toward them. Warren shouted over the noise. "Liam, reverse thrust on engine 2, maximum." Liam pulled the lever. The remaining engine roared, its thrust reversing, pushing back against their momentum. The plane shuddered. The left tires exploded, then the right. The aircraft lifted to one side. Warren fought the yoke, keeping it straight, using only the rudder. 80 knots, 60, 40, 300 meters to the end of the runway, 200, 100, 50 meters from the ocean. The plane stopped for 3 seconds. No one moved. No one breathed. Then the cabin erupted. Passengers screamed, cried, hugged each other. Thornton stood and began clapping. Others joined him. The sound was deafening. Warren released the yoke. His hands were shaking so badly he could not stop them. Liam was staring at him, mouth open, eyes wet. "We're alive! Oh, God, we're alive!" Warren unbuckled his seatbelt and stood. His legs almost gave out. He steadied himself against the seat and stepped toward the cabin. The door opened. Every face turned toward him, and then he saw her. Seat 8 bell. Nora was already running down the aisle. "Dad!"
She crashed into him. Warren dropped to his knees and wrapped his arms around her, holding her like he would never let go. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." 1 week later, Warren was back in Paris. The small apartment looked exactly as he had left it. The same cracked tile in the kitchen, the same humming refrigerator, the same laptop on the table. He had ignored 17 calls from news networks, CNN, BBC, the morning shows. They all wanted the story. The hero pilot, the man from seat 8A. Warren had declined everyone. He was sitting at the kitchen table reviewing code for a client project when Nora came over with her crayons. She had been drawing all morning. Now she held up a picture. It showed 2 people, a man and a little girl. Behind them, a large airplane. Warren smiled. "That's really good, sweetheart." Nora climbed into his lap. "Do you miss flying, Dad?" Warren looked at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "I miss you more." There was a knock at the door. Warren confused. He was not expecting anyone. When he opened it, Jillian Rhodes stood on the threshold. Behind her were over 30 people. Thornton, Howard Brennan, Douglas Martinez, the CEO who had bumped into him at the airport, and Veronica Sterling, her arm around a teenage girl with dark hair and nervous eyes. Jillian smiled. "We wanted to see you." Warren stepped back, overwhelmed. "I don't understand." Thornton stepped forward, holding a large envelope and a framed model of an F-16. The wings had an engraving, "Magic Hands," the hero of Flight 227. Thornton's voice was steady. "We wanted you to know what you did. You saved our lives." He handed Warren a letter. It was covered with signatures, 283 of them. Each person had written a few lines. Warren unfolded it and read, "Because of you, I got to see my daughter again. Because of you, I made it to my grandson's wedding. Because of you, I held my wife one more time." Warren's throat tightened. He could not speak. Douglas Martinez stepped forward. He looked embarrassed. "I bumped into you at the airport. I didn't even look at you. I'm sorry." He handed Warren his business card. "I run a tech company. If you ever want a better job, I'll make it happen." Warren looked at the card, then back at Martinez. "I appreciate that, but I'm happy where I am." Martinez smiled. "I figured you'd say that, but you deserve better." Veronica Sterling stepped forward with her daughter. The girl looked shy, uncertain. She held up a folded piece of paper. Warren took it and unfolded it carefully. It was a drawing, a man holding a little girl, behind them a plane, and at the bottom, careful handwriting, "Thank you for bringing my mom home." Veronica's voice was thick with emotion. "I was wrong about you. I judged you by your clothes, by your seat, but you're more decent than anyone I've ever met." Her daughter Caroline stepped closer. She threw her arms around Warren and whispered, "Thank you." Warren hugged her back, his eyes burning. Then Jillian stepped forward. She handed him a thick envelope. "This is from all of us. We took up a collection." Warren opened it. Inside were checks and cash. He counted quickly. $180,000. He looked up, stunned. "I can't accept this." Thornton shook his head. "You have to. This isn't charity. It's a debt. You gave us more time with our families." An older woman stepped forward. Her name was Helen Novak. She was a retired teacher. "I gave $2,000. That's my entire pension for the month, because you let me see my grandson again. He's 3 years old. I wouldn't trade that for anything." Warren's hands were shaking. He thought of Nora. College, a better life, security. But then he looked at the faces around him, and he shook his head. "I'll take half. The other half goes to Captain Stevens. He was injured because of that flight. His family needs it more than I do." Thornton smiled. "That's exactly why you deserve it all of it." That evening, Warren and Nora sat on the apartment building's rooftop. The city stretched out below them. Above, stars flickered in the clear sky. Nora leaned against his shoulder. "Dad, do you miss flying?" Warren looked up at the stars. For the first time in 9 years, he felt at peace. "I miss you more, sweetheart. The sky isn't my home." Nora tilted her head. "Then what is?" Warren wrapped his arm around her. "This, right here, with you." Nora was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Do you think Mom would be proud?" Warren's throat caught. I think she'd be very proud, because I did what she always believed I could do, not fly, protect the people I love. Nora rested her head on his chest. I'm proud of you too, Dad. Warren kissed the top of her head and looked back up at the sky. The stars were bright tonight, beautiful, but they weren't calling him. For the first time in 9 years, Warren Hayes knew that he had not given up the sky. He had simply chosen something more important. A hero is not the person who flies the highest. A hero is the person who knows the way home. And that night, as his daughter fell asleep in his arms, Warren Hayes understood. He did not need medals. He did not need cameras. He did not need the world to know his name. He just needed a heart strong enough to fight and a reason big enough to live. That reason weighed less than 30 kilograms and was sleeping soundly against his shoulder, but she was heavier than any sky he had ever flown.